Hello, freaks, geeks, degenerates, basement dwellers, and all you beautiful scruff-tards. Welcome to the war zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Skruffytalez. This is gonna be a very special kind of video because as I'm moving along the map, I realized that Ukraine launched a big mechanized assault. I'm gonna get stuck on that since I realized that as I'm recording. And then we're gonna move up to Pokrovsk. Gonna get stuck on Pokrovsk for a while as I'm realizing things with Pokrovsk, and then we're moving up to the front lines outside of Siversk, and I get stuck focused on a canal in that area and begin looking into what that might mean for the Russian advance. Without having anything planned or stuff like that. So you're just gonna have to follow along as I'm checking out the map and thinking aloud, essentially. So maybe not the most fun video because you're gonna follow me along as I'm looking at the map for the first time, realizing what's in front of the Russians at certain locations. Anyway, but the main thing here is that Ukraine has launched a mechanized assault, so we're gonna be talking about that. But first, you can clearly see I planned this video out ahead of time, right? Because yeah, I watched a video with ATP Geopolitics, and he said that he needs to work on his Scandinavian accent due to the fact that Sweden and Denmark and the rest of the Nordics they're doing such a fantastic job helping Ukraine. So I figured let's start things off with helping ATP Geopolitics and the rest of you to figure out at least the Swedish accent in terms of English. So let's take a look at the Swedish accent and then head on to the maps and the mechanized assaults and everything else. Oh, Jesus Christ. 2 minutes of this bullshit. Let's move on. Rightio, so here we have the Tridon Mark II and Gripen fighter jet. Big Swedish support components for Ukraine, and the Danes have been helping out with the Tridons and everything. So, so if you want to do some reporting on Scandinavian stuff with a Scandinavian accent, well, you need to, well, at least the Swedish one. We can do some proper Swinglish, as we call it. And a key part is getting the I's correct. And we're not talking about the I's you speak with, but the letter I. So the Swedish I is I. And that is, if you hear an accent, and it's a Swede, you're going to notice that I. Because it just takes over everything, like tree. That's gonna be a tree. Have you seen the tree over there? It's very nice. It's green. All the E sounds turn into E. So you have Gripen, Tridon, and now it's called Tridon in Swedish as well. But I can bet you money that someone's gonna go. Some older 80-year-old Swede is gonna go. They have bought a Tridon with a Bofors on top. So you need to get the E if you want to do the Swedish accent. So Sweden has provided Ukraine or Ukraina with Tridon lastbilar, trucks with the big Bofors gun on top. And we will also maybe give them Gripen fighter jets with Meteor missiles to shoot down ryssjävlar with. So kind of like that. And that is not that, it's that, because the becomes D. So that thing over there, is very much like a tree. If you get my meaning, you can hear those I's turning into E's. So yeah, and if you want to do Danish, it's fan. Hiver. Basically, don't bother. They don't understand Danish either, the Danes. That's why they fight a lot. You know, because Danes actually get drunk so that they can understand each other better. Because if they talk to each other regularly, being sober, no one understands anything. Norwegians are more. Norwegians have a bounce in their accent. It's a very, and they all end it with a pitch. Nei, nu må vi snakke norsk. Nei, nu må vi snakke norsk. Nei, nu må vi kun snakke norsk. You can hear it. There's a nei, nu må vi kun snakke norsk. So you have to have that bounce with the Norwegian accent, and then just go high pitched as hell towards the end of the sentence. Why? I don't know. I have no idea. They just do it. So Norwegians, they just bounce their way through sentences. The Danes are Danes, and then you have Finns. Yeah, Finns. Let's leave it at that. Okay, enough of this fucking bullshit. Let's head on over to the maps. Before we do that, this section is taking over the entire video. Jesus Christ. If you want some really proper Swedish accent, I have to do my own region. If you're from West Coast Sweden, you need to speak a lot like this. It's a very deep, robust working man's accent. You know, you build Volvos and you build ships that carry cargo on the ocean. And you do that in Gothenburg, Göteborg. They have the best football in Sweden and also best hockey. And it was founded by the greatest warrior king in Swedish history. He burned half of Europe, but that's a different story. He built a town, and if the reason why it works so well with English is because we have these rolling R's in Gothenburg, and that is because we invited a lot of Scots to build ships with us back in the day. So two very common names in Gothenburg is Morgan and Glenn. And those are Scottish names that we kept when the Scots came. So we kept the Ors and Morgan and Glenn in Gothenburg. That is why those are very key parts of Göteborgska, Gothenburgska. Yeah. And but as you can tell, it's a really fancy accent. It's you shove the snus up the lip and fan down jävla helrör, och så är det fucking out to the workplace and get shit done. Exactly. And no one else can, just listen to Stockholmers and Malmöiter and fuck knows what else. Those are horrible accents. But the göteborgska fucking real thing. Now, enough of this bullshit. This is basically half the video at this point, it feels like. And me just rambling about stupid, silly bullshit. So fucking skip ahead. Well, now this section is over. Don't skip ahead because we're about to go over to the map. So don't skip ahead. But enough is enough. Nu jävla blir det kartor. Rightio, so let's take a look at the front line here with the morning coffee. We're starting off with separation, moving our way up, and I guess the big news is from this part of the battlefield, some small Ukrainian successes down here. So let's zoom in here. Coffee. Not much going on down here. But we are seeing activity up here, and it is Ukrainian activity, of course. We have Ukraine reclaiming Ternovate and also Pridorozhnie. As we can see here, Ukrainians are raising flags. You have Ukrainian assaults and the Russians attacking left and right here. And we're also seeing down here Ukrainian mechanized assault. Really? I didn't realize it was a mechanized assault at Vozhnyezhnya. Let's see what we can see. What the fuck are we looking at here? Something burning and here. What the hell? Is that a building or a vehicle? It must be a building, right? Okay, yeah, these buildings here. So you're claiming that there's a Ukrainian vehicle somewhere on this goddamn image? So here you have a square. This is the square. That building is that building. And that building is that building. And supposedly there are Ukrainian vehicles somewhere on the image. I don't know. Ukrainian track garden shed damaged. These big blocks here, those vehicles, if that's the case, that, are we, those, I don't know, seems kind of substantial in that case. We have a large Ukrainian push right here. I have no clue what's going on over here. Ukrainian assault. What's this? Disembarking. I'm sorry, maybe I should start the video over and know what? Dragon teeth. They're moving through dragon teeth. I'm checking these out as we are going along. Ukrainian BNP. Okay, so quite clearly. Oh, shit. That's not good. So, quite clearly, something's happening here. And where's that river at? So, lots of Ukrainians moving here. Ukrainian armored vehicles destroyed in the Vojnovyzhka. And we have Ukrainians moving up here. So, there appears to be some form of battle ongoing in this part here. But why are they getting across the frozen river? Maybe between these two smaller towns, Priyoliki and Vavarivka. Something's happening here. We have a clash. The Ukrainians moving in lots of armor. Maybe it's a rotation, moving in troops, rotating out the defenders. And the Russians are trying to intercept them. Could be what's happening here. At the same time, this is the southern flank of the Ukrainian push up here, where they are liberating Ternivate and Pridorozhnine, whatever it's called. Ukrainian drone strike, Ukrainian track garden shed damaged. Another one. So, quite clearly, something's happening in this. I thought we were gonna report on Ternivate, but something larger is happening here. Northern and southern flank of the Russian push, as well as a frontal attack. So, is Ukraine trying to do a pincer move to tie up Russian forces down here, as they're pushing in strongly into Ternivate, denying Russia a chance to advance up to Ternivate? Russia must secure the flanks with forces, since the Ukrainians are pushing, and that means they can't reinforce Ternivate as the main push goes in to liberate these two towns. Could be it. So applying pressure here and here to force the Russians to allocate troops, and then you move in and engage the units up here that are now left without support. That could be it. I didn't. Sorry, I was. What? This is an excellent video. Me just moving around the map, not talking. Okay, so that big stuff happening, much bigger than I actually thought. Moving up, where are we? Pokrovsk and Mirnorod, and take a look at this. We are almost halfway through February, and the Russians, they are now almost in complete control of Pokrovsk. My God, a year and a half later or something, and Andrew here, it's Andrew's map, has a lot of Mirnorod in being contested. It differs slightly from the different mappers here. I will show you. But it seems as if the Russians are able to push through Rudinsk. I read somewhere that this is one of the main locations for heavy fighting, Rudinsk. But it looks like maybe Russia is actually pushing through. They pushed up to New Donbass a week or two ago, haven't been able to push out from it. Heavy fighting still ongoing in the outskirts of Konstantinivka. They are advancing here on the Siversk front line, we can call it. And I told you, haven't I? They will advance here. Ukraine won't stop them. We have... Here is a clearly defined defensive line. This is what they rate... No, it's a canal. Okay. So... This canal could be a place where the Ukrainians mount their proper defensive line. And so... This is gonna be a temporary obstacle in the Russians' path. Expect Russia to advance up to this canal. This is maybe where the Ukrainians will mount a defense. That will slow down the Russians, and then maybe it's going to take a couple of days, a week or so. Then the Russians will probably come down from the south, find a way across, and start pushing up towards Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. So this area here, expect Russia to slowly but surely advance. It's not going to be lightning speed, but, you know, they're going to chip away at Ukrainian positions every day for the next 6 months, for the next year, until they reach the outskirts of Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. Expect that to happen. But I'm hopeful that this canal, might be a good line to defend for the Ukrainians. So maybe Russia won't be able to reach Kramatorsk and Sloviansk this year. Yeah, maybe. I'm hopeful. Lyman looks the same, basically. We have Russians in this corner. They are struggling. There's a lot of fighting going back and forth at Dibrova. Ukraine clears out this small village. Russia moves in, and it's back and forth. So clearly this fight for Dibrova is super crucial for the Lyman battlefield. Can Russia move into the south and start clearing out these large woodland areas outside of Lyman? Because in these woods I'm fairly certain this is where Ukraine has built up supply depots. This is where their troops can rest away from Lyman as Lyman gets hammered with artillery and what have you. So I'm guessing the Russians, they want to come in here and grab all of this territory, because then they more than likely will secure a whole bunch of supply depots intended to help Lyman in the city fighting. So Dibrova, I think, is a very, very crucial fight. Russia is pushing out. We are seeing infiltration units moving towards the Oskil River. But it's slow going overall for the Russians north of Lyman. Kupiansk being liberated. And, take a look at this. This is interesting. Capture the POW. Hoist a flag. This is good. We know the Ukrainians want to counterattack. So if they can reclaim territory close to the border, that is... very good news. That it's good propaganda victories if they can push the Russians back to the border. We saw some Ukrainian activity here at this town. The Russians were bombing with airstrikes like crazy along the entire border here. Let's see if we can go back. Here you go. There's airstrikes all over the place. Airstrikes still in place. Artillery, Russian shelling, more Russian airstrikes. And what was this? Ukrainian drone attack. So along this section of the border, in these past 9 days or 10 days of February, there has been some activity here, as you can see. along this border, but it doesn't seem to be expanding into something massive. The Ukrainians are holding these woodlands, and the Russians are engaging them, as it were. So unfortunately, not a big push into Belgorod, but it might still happen. And Sumy Oblast seems to be, well, the Russians have reclaimed Konstantinivka, pushed back into Andreevka, and secured Oleksivka. And now it seems to have quieted down a bit again. So we'll see if the Ukrainians can build up troops and push the Russians back once more towards the border here. So that was the map according to Andrew. Let's do Mayakovsk 73. And what can he tell us about this situation? And I thought it was only Ternivate, but as you can see here, the Russians have been pushed back. Here you have that Ukrainian push from the north, and armored fighting vehicle hit. Yeah, the Ukrainian push in the south. Drone, intercept drone. Lada hit a mine. And but yeah, it's more or less, here you have some Russian gains to counter that. But so a Ukrainian push from the north, Ukrainian push in the south, and the main push into Ternivate. I think they were tying up for forces on the flanks that would allow them to make this push. Russia could not push forces across the river to support this fight, since they had to defend their positions on the flanks. Seems logical. Russian POWs, always nice to see. Zooming in here, we can see Mayakovsk 73. His map is pretty similar to Andrews, with the Russian advance north here and south, and then you have a pocket where the Ukrainians are contesting stuff. But here you can see this is a Ukrainian artillery strike, a couple of days old now, but clearly the Russians have infiltrated this part of town as well. And we can see Ukrainians destroying artillery in Mirnorad and in Pokrovsk. So we're nearing a point in time where definitely Pokrovsk has fallen. Not quite there yet though, Vatniks. A week or so. You have to hang on there for another week. Maybe towards the end of February. So I know your favorite YouTubers told you that Pokrovsk fell in like the first week of November 2025. But if you haven't caught on yet, all your favorite pro-Russian YouTubers are lying pieces of shit and rarely provide you anything of worth. Just a heads up, unless you didn't already figure that one out. But Pokrovsk still holding on here, and Ukrainians are still in town fighting. Here we can see Ukrainian drone striking all over the place. So yeah, the Russians are pushing through Rodinsky. I think it's safe to say that they are pushing up here. And no, Novodonbass is the furthest extent. The Ukrainians are holding the line here, and the Russians are struggling pushing past Novye Donbass towards Dobropilia. Lots of activity in Konstantinivka. Lots and lots. Here you can see Russian strikes in the outskirts. You can see how the Russians trying to come in north of this part here. And this is front line where you can... Well, how old is this one? This is Russian artillery on the 6th. And a drone on the 4th. Okay, so Ivanopilia is very much contested. The Russians are bombarding Ivanopilia as well. Okay, nice. So the outskirts of Konstantinivka, very much a hot zone. This is where the forces are clashing well and truly. Moving up here, Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, the Russians are advancing. What's this? Someone has mapped out Ukrainian defensive lines. Okay, following the canal here and following the main highway, the E40. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm gonna call it the canal. That is the defensive line. Not the. This is yeah, the Ukrainians have surely built, maybe this is high ground that they're following here, but the canal, I'm calling it here now. That's where the Ukrainians will make a stand eventually to halt the advance, and then the Russians gonna have to spend a couple of weeks, a month trying to get across, and after that they will continue pushing towards Kramatorsk, Sloviansk. Where are we at now? Liman, Dibrova, and here you can see the Russians are in this corner. Mayakovsk 73 has the Russians pushing in here. Interesting. What else? Well, nothing going on up here, unfortunately, outside of Vovchansk. And that is pretty much it for Mayakovsk 73. What can we see on the ISW map? This situation is roughly the same here. They are pushing into Stepnohirsk, Russians south of Zaporizhia. And Ternovat is infiltrated here, according to ISW. These lines here indicates Russian infiltration. But that's basically it. We have some Russian infiltrations down here as well. Yeah, but nothing, major in terms of Russia trying to push across, in other words. We can move up to Pokrovsk and take a look. Remember what Mayakovsk 73 and Andrew Perpetua said? They said that the Russians were advancing hard into the northern parts here. But according to ISW, this is all contested. So the Ukrainians, I hope you can see the lines here, contest. So according to ISW, this section here is very much still contested by the Ukrainians. This part here is even under Ukrainian control. We can see that the Russians are expanding territory between Ryzhne and Pokrovsk here. They came up this way, a narrow advance. Remember, we were talking about that a week or two ago, and now they have expanded outward, securing the windbreaks on both north and south of this road here. So the Russians, they pierced through Ukrainian lines and have since pushed out on both sides of that road to secure territory. But ISW has all of Mirnorad under Ukrainian control, but they assess that Ukraine is still very much in control of, well, half of the northern part of Pokrovsk. If the railway divides Pokrovsk into north and south, so we have the northern part, Ukraine holds half of the northern part of Pokrovsk, which is a bit encouraging. That said, you can see here the Russians are infiltrating to the north, and it's dangerously close to becoming a pincer move if they can begin to establish proper presence up here. So the Ukrainians down here, they are in a spot of bother, as it were. Oh, that reminds me, I told ATP Geopolitics to teach him some proper Swedish accents. I have to toss that in at the start of the video. And Novi Donbass, the Russians are pushing out of Shakove to Novoshakove, Ivanivka, and Dorozhne, trying to reach Dobropilya. But as we've said before, between Dobropilya and Pokrovsk, there's a massive network of Ukrainian trenches. So it's going to be difficult for the Russians to push through into that. The ISW does not indicate a Russian advance in this area, where both Andrew and Mayakovsk have highlighted the area as contested. Interesting. Nothing indicating a Russian infiltration here, according to ISW. Okay. But yeah, anything on Liman? No, nothing except Dibrova again. Okay. You know what? I'm going to check out that canal. I'm really interested in this canal. What is the terrain look like? What does it look like? It's pretty flat around here. And then you have a canal up on the high. Here you have a valley. Okay. So, where are the Russians trying to go from here? It's very hilly and lots of valleys here. Yeah. So what the Russians are going to be doing here is moving into the valleys. With the drones and everything, you do not want to be up on the high ground, up on these wide open fields. They're going to be advancing through cover, and that means staying low in the valleys where you have buildings, where you have vegetation with these wooded areas, windbreaks and what have you. So they're going to be following these valleys. Here you have more valleys, as you can see here, and lots of woods here, in order to try and eventually reach this canal. And this part here might be a good place for the Ukrainians to defend. You have a large town, Mykolaiivka. Okay, yeah, large town. You have lots of woods around it, lots of uneven terrain. The Russians will take the high ground eventually, but you know, I think Mykolaiivka is where Ukraine might mount a defense. You have some good windbreaks outside of it, and then to the south and west you have this canal that should be able to help out with the defenses. Oskil River, large dams. Okay, Mykolaiivka looks promising. It's close to Sloviansk though, and it's gonna take Russia some time to get there. But if we accept that Russia will slowly but surely, I mean, they were gonna crawl their way through this valley towards Kalenki, and then try and reach the high ground. So these woods here should be nice positions for the Ukrainians to defend as well. And then you have Mykolaiivka behind it. Yeah. And the canal here. Take a look at this. So the Russians there are lots of wide open spaces. The Russians are going to be advancing along these windbreaks. Maybe do dashes with vehicles on occasion. But like we said, drones will hunt them down. And then try and make their way up to the canal. Here's a bridge. It's going to be blown up at some point. Here you have the canal going underground. So this is where the Russians will focus their attack. South, close to Mykolaiivka even. Okay, yeah, so this is where the Russians want to get across. They don't need bridges. Ukraine can't blow shit up to deny the Russians to advance. This here, same thing here, where the canal goes underground. This is where the Russians will focus their attack to get across. You have a small town close to it that the Ukrainians can try and fortify with some valleys. And you have Mykolaiivka nearby that threatens a Russian advance across here. Mykolaiivka will be fortified, I think, to the best of Ukraine's ability in order to link up defenses with this underground portion for the canal. And that is where a big battle will eventually be fought. Now this is, we've seen this situation before, by the way, at Chasiv Yar. If you're wondering if a canal can be problematic. Here you have the canal outside of Chasiv Yar, right? This is Chasiv Yar, and here you have the canal, and here you have an underground section right here, right? And you had something similar a bit north as well. So it took Russia forever to get across this canal, and they had to, when they did get across, it was at these sections where the canal went underground, like here, south of Chasiv Yar. So they pushed hard towards these sections where the canal went underground in order to bypass the water feature and assault Chasiv Yar. And as you can see,
the canal has been a massive problem for the Russians, and they're still stuck in Chasiv Yar. So I'm hopeful that the canal here will funnel the Russians into this portion here. And with Mykolaiivka heavily fortified, making use of the terrain features surrounding it, this town here, Raya Alexandrivka, might also be a heavy battlefield, since the Russians will be pushing through here to reach this portion here. So between these two towns and the crossing here, yeah, me looking around the map, speculating, and not thinking this through before recording makes for an excellent video, I feel. I really planned this out ahead of time, didn't I? But yeah, I think... yeah. So the Russians, they're gonna be pushing along here, along the valleys and what have you, reach the canal. We're gonna have some fighting in Raya Alexandrivka. Question is if the Ukrainians will hold on to it aggressively, or if they will just fall back slowly to allow the Russians to gain it eventually, and then just wait for Russians to come up this way and keep attacking out of Mykolaiivka as the Russians are pushing into this section here where you can get across the canal. Okay, enough of this shit. Time to move on to do something more worthwhile, I guess.
So yeah, this video turned out to be different. Jesus fuck, if you stayed through it all, damn, don't know what to tell you. You have no life. Anyway, yeah, it's a mechanized assault in Ukraine there. That was interesting. And since we did talk a lot of Swedish stuff in the video, and there was a focus on some mechanized assault there, why not honor the mechanized forces with a song in Swedish? Enjoy.
Vi avancerar dag som natt. Vi är pansarskyttar, vi är pansarnäven. Bajonett på, tills vitagat vi ser gå på. Så lyder vårat skall. Med hydande motoren får vi fienden på fall. Lottjägarna gömma sig i sin skog. Där pansarstriden krävs äkta mod. En storm av krut, rök, avgaser, splitter och blod. Bränsle, ammunition och svett. Endast kravar där fienden stod. Har aklas strål. Ryssjävelsen sett stål. Vi är stormens ryttare. Vi som rider in i stridens våld. Vi betalar med blod. Striden är vår enda sol. Pansarskyttar. Stridsvagn och stridsfordon går på match. Känner hur pansarnäven slår. Här är fiendens linjer där vi rakryggar står. Här är striden där vi utan tvekan fienden flår. Likt ormen jägaren smyger bakom fiendens led. Genom skog och över hed. Men ni ser ett pansarskytte mitt ut i fiendens linjer. Seger säkras när pansarsträd. Pansarskytte. Bajonett på. Gå på marsch. Hör akans vrål. Ryssjävelkänslan står. Vi är stormens ryttare. Vi som rider in i stridens våld. Vi betalar med blod. Striden är vår enda sål. Bajonett på. Tills vitagat vi ser gå på. Så lyder vårat skall. Med rytande motorer får vi fienden på fall. Stridsvagn känn hur pansarnäven slår. Här i fiendens länge där vi rakryggat står. Här i striden där vi utan tvekan fienden slår. Låt jägarna gömma sig i sin skog. Där pansarstriden krävs det äkta mod. Där stormar krutnöt, avgaser, splitter och blod. Bränsle, ammunition och svett. Endast gravar där fienden stod. Hör akans vrål, ryssjävelkänslan står.